Thank you for joining us, listeners, today in advance of the Elko County Commission regular meeting. So pleased to have our guest today, the Assistant Elko County Manager, Natural Resources Director Curtis Moore is in studio with us today, and we'll go over the agenda in advance of the meeting. Curtis, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We always appreciate the chance to catch up. So we know it's a busy agenda. It looks like Elko County Commission's kind of thrown everything. It's a laundry list. Fire board meeting starts in advance of the regular session. And there's always good news. I know that the fire chief, Matt Peterson, has been earning a lot of accolades from, his colleagues in the business.
Yeah, he's really proactive. Our whole fire district has been doing a great job being out there and finding opportunities to reduce fire danger as well as fight them. So they've been doing great.
I know there is one agenda item on here that will see some good news to the Rindon Volunteer Fire Department and the Death Star Valley Volunteer Fire Department. If commissioners approved, they will be awarded $500,000 through a reimbursable grant program. The grant's been budgeted through the infrastructure tax plan, and that's always good news. I am looking at, just so you know, whatever page this is. Oh, there it is, page 6. It's the fine print. So, so I was jumping ahead quite a bit, Curtis, but just a nod to the fire department.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so that's part of that being proactive thing that they've been doing, making sure our facilities are up to par and making sure that everybody who fights fire for Elko County's got the equipment and the facilities they need.
Yeah, that's a huge change and much appreciated, and it often combines resources from the volunteers themselves and the communities who benefit, so it's a great collaboration. So again, Matt, going into 2024, thank you, Chief Peterson, for your fantastic leadership in bringing the Elko County Fire Protection District to where we are.
Yeah, they've done a great job.
Yep, look forward to more exciting things going forward. I know they responded to a couple of fires too this week, a truck fire, I think early morning or late last night. There was a fire involving a heating appliance in a doghouse. The dog was not hurt, so that's good news. Nobody injured, but it's just a safety reminder.
For sure.
Yeah, be careful out there with anything that could start a fire. So looking at the agenda, Curtis, there'll be some much deserved recognition. Elko's VFW, the Veterans Day Parade. That was an amazing parade. There was just so many grateful people, Curtis, on hand for that one, and I saw you there too at that one.
Yeah, so this is an opportunity for the commission to recognize, the first, second, and third place winners, as well as Miss Mahoney, who really did a great job putting that together.
Yeah, she rallied behind, and she's not a veteran. She's just a citizen who came to the county meeting to support someone else who is a veteran, and it evolved very quickly into a renewed Elko County Veterans Day Parade, and lots of promises that we will never neglect this event again.
Yeah, and so, I think they've put together a good group, and I think that'll serve them well going forward.
Yeah, and many thanks to the county staff too, by the way, because people did rally and make this possible. So it really takes a true collaborative effort. So congratulations. The winners include in first place POWMIA, Jerry Franco and Austin Yowell in second, and also recognized were the Nua Waipapan, and I'm hoping I pronounced that correctly, but that's an important group for Indigenous people in our community.
I'm glad you took a shot at it, because I was not going to.
I know that one's, we've got to get more education out about that, a really important group, but I did want to make sure that we acknowledge that they were, singled out during the Veterans Day Parade. And moving on to there is going to be a planning and zoning, an appeal that's at 1:30 today, 1:35.
Yeah, and so this is an appeal from a decision from the Planning Commission, pretty much just what it says on the tin. There's there was an application that was approved by the Planning Commission, and some folks affected by that are sort of exercising their right to ask the County Commission to review it, and so we'll see how that goes going forward.
All right, so that will certainly, there are a lot of things that get proposed for changes out on lands that, might be contiguous to recreation places or places where people have moved to retire, even though there's housing subdivisions, Curtis. Folks can be pretty sensitive about neighbors and the kind of activities that happen, right?
Yeah, zoning is always exciting.
Yeah, definitely. So planning and zoning appeal on the agenda. And then this is kind of exciting too. I mean, utilities grant, NV Energy wants to support the power line to the Elko County Motor Sports Park.
Yeah, and so the folks out there at the Motorsports Park, right now it's the Elko County Motocross Club, they've been really proactive in developing that area, and they've kind of reached the point where they're able to look at bringing in some electrical utilities and things like that. And so this is a utilities grant that basically will allow the construction of a power line to that area, and so it'll cross county land, and so this is a grant to that.
Now, Curtis, isn't this one of the first projects you started working on when you came to Elko County in this job?
Yeah, it started quite a bit before I got there. All of the hard work had been done, really, and so a land transfer like this takes quite a bit of time, even when it's congressionally directed like this was. And so yeah, we got it and started asking around for proposals for how to direct it. We started that process kind of when COVID was making its way through, and so things were slower, but they happened. But yeah, the Motocross Club has just done a really good job of being able to sort of pave the way as the first group of folks out there, and the first facilities built out there. And so they've learned a lot that they've been able to sort of pass on to anybody else that's interested in it.
Nice. They're generous. And this is really, as you mentioned, I mean, it's developing into a very nice multi-sport recreation facility. In fact, there is an agenda item on page 6 under the district attorney's office because it involves an amendment to the current Summit Raceway lease, extending the term by 1 year. Summit is apparently going to move.
Yeah, so we're in talks with sort of how to do that. They're very interested in it. I don't know if you've been to the Raceway lately in the last couple of years, but just with the size of, with the popularity of it and how many people are interested in going, as well as the size of some of the vehicles and trailers that have kind of grown over the last few years, they're just running out of space. They're a little bit pinched in there, and there's actually been some competitors that aren't able to come just because it's not a big enough facility. And so moving them over there will sort of give them a little more space to stretch out and to improve their facility and improve the visitor and competitor experience. And so they're looking at that. We're working closely with them on proposals for how to do that. But in the meantime, their lease is coming up due, and so this is just sort of give them another year to continue operating as they have been while we work out those other things and get that sorted out. So yeah, they're doing a great job, and I think it would be a neat addition out there.
That's exciting. So looking at moving the facility to the Motor Sports Park we've been talking about, easy access on and off I-80 there at exit 298?
Yep. Yeah, right there off the Sinclair. So, it's outside of town just enough to where you're not going to be affecting any residences at this time, but it's close enough that it'll be really easy for folks from town to visit, and easy enough access that out-of-town competitors and others will be able to get to it easier than where it's currently at.
Wow, it's exciting, and it kind of ties in with plans. We haven't heard of a location yet, but I know the event center planned by the Boys and Girls Club still looking at, a couple of potential sites. So
yeah, and so we'll kind of see how that all comes together, and it's Elko County's got more folks in it, and they all need things to do, and so I think it'll all work in tandem.
Yeah, they love their races. Summit Raceway, super popular. Again, looking at a move, and the county has been facilitating this. The city's also participating with water, I think existing water right, and then look at this NV Energy power line that's going out. So super cool, Curtis.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. They're, everybody who's working on it has been really generous with their time and really pleasant to work with.
Great. So jumping around a little bit on the county agenda for today's meeting that opens at 1:30 in regular session. The fire district meeting's at 1:15. There is going to be a presentation from Ormat Technologies, and I'm sure being our natural resources point person, Curtis, you're familiar with what it is they're hoping to achieve?
Yeah, so Ormat's kind of the main developer of geothermal resources in this area. And so with the county's been kind of taking a look recently at how we are going to plan for and regulate renewable energy development. And so Ormat's coming to kind of give an overview of what they do and how that all works. So it'd give us a little better understanding of it and more education in that area.
It basically is described as Geothermal 101 Sustainability. Great thing about Elko County meetings, you can watch them online. They're streamed at elkocountynv.net. They're also archived, so that's a resource I know I appreciate, and you can go online anytime after the fact and go right into any of these sections and watch the discussion as it's replayed.
Yeah, it's pretty easy and intuitive to navigate.
Yep, so that's another great resource. So then let's see. I want to make sure we also recognize Kathy Jones. She is fantastic in her advocacy and care for our especially senior community, or for any individual who might be incapacitated, unable to manage their own finances or make decisions about their health care. She manages up to 25 protected people in our county at any time and often has a wait list. And so she's up for discussion as a public guardian today.
Yeah, and Kathy does a great job. Just sort of juggling those people and making sure that they have the resources that they need to live as with as much dignity and care as they're able to.
And it's so nice, Curtis. She has such a small staff, but she really works with other agencies and groups. She's an intense collaborator. I just couldn't think of a better person, and I'm sure anybody listening that knows Kathy and her work, to have this position. It's breathtaking to think of the trust that you would have in someone in this position.
Yeah, and you really need the right person for it, and somebody that you can trust caring for people who really can't make their own decisions. And so, I think she's a great choice.
Yeah, so thank you, Kathy, and best of luck, but I'm sure you won't need it for this afternoon's meeting. We're talking with Curtis Moore, our Assistant County Manager, in advance of this afternoon's meeting. Now we're getting into some meatier meat of the stuff, because I know I've got to send you out on time because you're right there in the chair as the meeting's being conducted. If we're looking at Elko County Finance, this is an interesting, under J, item J, transfers to facility capital funds, and this has to do with sort of mingling a lot of money, or consolidating, if you will, a resolution that provides for the transfer of all these appropriations in lieu of taxes, American Rescue Plan Act Fund, and the County Capital Projects Fund to the County Capital Facilities Projects Funds. This allows for consolidation of current appropriations into a single fund for current and future facility projects. So a lot could happen with something like this, right, Curtis?
Yeah. So you can see right there. There's a few different sources that these funds come from. The payment in lieu of taxes, which is a payment that comes from the federal government, just because so much of Elko County is federal land, that it kind of sets over there. The American Rescue Plan Act Fund, recent legislation that was passed, the County Capital Projects Fund, which sort of went in line with the county capturing some more of the tax cap that was available last year. And so just the county's done a really good job, I think, lately, especially our new comptroller, Susan. She's done a great job sort of making sure that we follow those pennies through the system and can see exactly where they're spent, and make sure that when it comes time to audit that, there wasn't anything wonky that sort of happens in that process. And so this is just kind of part of that, is making sure that those funds are available to be used at the right time for the right projects.
All right. So for those interested, in lieu of taxes, which is the money that's offset private development, the taxes could be received on public lands, $6 million in that account. American Rescue Plan Act Fund, there's about $5 million left. I can't recall, but I think the county received about $11 million of that initially.
Maybe. I failed algebra 4 times, so if there's more than 3 letters in a row, I'm out.
You're fine. He's an outstanding writer, so you make up for it there. County Capital Projects Fund, $8.5 million, and again realized from tax proceeds shifted from pay-as-you-go school funding. So in all, the county's going to have about $19.5 million for capital projects, and that fund will continue to grow going forward, even without ARPA funds, or because in lieu of taxes keeps coming in, and so does the capital projects, the tax proceeds.
And the county commission has kept sort of a running list of their priorities and things to do with that money. And so if the public's interested, they can always check out and see what those priorities are.
Thank you, Curtis, for that reminder. And we can hold our county commissioners accountable because they're the ones that hold the purse strings when it comes to it. So thank you to the accounting department for the due diligence in making sure that this is presented publicly and that we all have a chance to look it over and scrutinize it because it's our money, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. And then some heavy lifting coming up under 4th Judicial District Court, where it's no secret, Curtis, that our community is just besieged by mental health issues, loss of teenagers, children, senior citizens, people with mental health issues, to suicide. We have rampant drug problems that are fueling crime and filling the jail full of people. We hear from our sheriff and law enforcement, what a difficult task that is to try to manage, crime and law enforcement. So we're looking at establishment of a new health court, right? A mental health court?
Yeah, and so for any listeners that are sort of unfamiliar with the idea of a specialty court, the idea is to sort of make them part of the judicial process and make treatments that might otherwise be unavailable available to the people who need it most, who end up causing some of these issues, and basically take somebody who might be a liability in the community, who's using resources to make them become an asset. And so we've had specialty courts for some time now. We've had the adult drug court, the family treatment court, the DUI diversion court, and this just sort of adds another venue to allow people to get that treatment. It's the mental health court, so somebody whose main problem might not necessarily be substance related is going to be able to access treatments that'll sort of get them off the street more effectively than a few months in jail, and the underlying issue isn't fixed, and that's really the aim of these programs. And so we've been lucky to work with some great treatment providers in the area, and some really dedicated staff from all of the affected departments. And so it's a worthwhile venture, and it's really neat to be able to look at establishing this.
And Curtis, what judge is carrying that for us? It is 4th Judicial, so is that Judge Kaysen?
I'm not. The judges kind of split up the treatment court or the specialty courts between themselves, and I'm not exactly sure which judge will be carrying this, but of the 3 judges, they're all very familiar with each of these issues, and so I think that whichever one they choose will be able to carry that forward really effectively.
Yeah, as you mentioned, these specialty courts, for example, adult drug court program, that's also on the agenda today. They have a grant application to the Nevada Supreme Court for about $183,000. And this court, promotes sober living, and there are a lot of aspects to it, including helping with housing and job workforce readiness, making doctor's appointments, taking parenting classes. So there's quite a bit, and I'm sure that mental health court will follow along the same lines.
Yeah, I think anybody familiar with these issues will sort of recognize that even after you get a person clean, one of the biggest obstacles to maintaining that sobriety is their living situation, and whether that's safe and sober and stable, or whether that's just going to kind of push them back into the same situations they were in when they started using. And so having these resources available to kind of help these people out as they build the tools to maintain a sober lifestyle is really important.
And you mentioned too, Curtis, this is, it's important for a lot of different reasons. What the sheriff was just on, Sheriff Itor Narvaez, talked about the new procedure at the jail. They have nursing staff available 22 hours a day now. And so when someone is released from jail, it used to be that they were just, okay, you're on your own. But now they'll go before that nursing staff before they're released, and if they have any medications, they'll be given about a 2-week supply of medication, and the script will be in hand, and then they'll be instructed where to go to fill the prescription. They will likely have paperwork in hand so that they can do that, again, with the goal of, giving people a stable footing, at least when they're released from jail.
Yeah, it's so expensive to keep somebody in jail that it's helpful to, if that person can be safely out on the street and managing their own affairs and being an asset to the community, it's a net gain for sure, rather than sort of keeping them in that revolving door.
And it's important to note that for some of these people, they've not been able to take medication, or they weren't consistent with it, so this might be their next best chance to become stable and then to do the things that the rest of us. Some days are good days and some are bad, Curtis, but I don't think any of us would ever envision for ourselves the tough life that some folks have certainly had to endure.
It's nobody's first choice, for sure.
Definitely. And I did want to mention, too, that these applications from 4th Judicial District Court are going up to the Nevada Supreme Court because there's money available, and that's important. Mental health court, they're looking for about $111,000. So that's good news.
Yep.
It's not entirely locally funded. We're getting some support.
Yeah, and it's the Nevada Supreme Court and the Administrative Office of Courts have really worked to try to get these because they see the value in these programs.
So again, thanks to our local judges, municipal, district court judges, everybody who works in support staff, they have a big job to do, and they have really met the growth and the demands of an ever-changing rural Nevada, and especially here in Elko County. Wanted to make sure that we mention something that's probably right in your department, and that is the petition to control wild horse populations. Commissioners are looking at that. Now, there's a letter from the Coalition for Healthy Nevada Lands. Do you know much about the coalition, or what that is? That a new group?
I don't know much about their history. I know that they're just sort of another group that's kind of it's a group of groups, but basically looking at this, at the wild horse situation as it currently exists, and just acknowledging that it's really not sustainable. You've got a non-native species that reproduces very quickly. It can double every 4 years or so. They don't have any natural predators. There's not really any endemic diseases that keep their population under control, and so it's really up to humans to manage them, and it just hasn't been done. The BLM has the plans, but they haven't always been given the resources to do it, and so it's basically a request to upper levels of management to say, hey, look, our local offices all have a plan to get the horses down to appropriate management levels within 10 years. We really need to see these things funded, and it's controversial, but there's as many people as possible out here sort of support this, because the horses do, they compete with native wildlife like, endangered bighorns. They can degrade sage grouse habitat. They can degrade mule deer habitat and that sort. And so it's just really important that they be managed like you would any other livestock herd.
And Curtis, it's true. Many of us who live in the West, whether or not someone cared for the livestock or the wild species, it's not healthy for the horses either.
Not great for the horses. No, they're they end up in really bad shape, and nobody who sort of likes horses would want to see them in that way.
Yep. So the Coalition for Healthy Nevada Lands letter would be addressed, if approved, to Tracy Stone Manning. That's a BLM director. And again, I know that it's worded to say demanding control, but frankly, the letter is very reasonable, and it says request. We respectfully request you prioritize Nevada for additional gathers. So I didn't see anything that was demanding in this letter. So the wording on the agenda was interesting, but yeah.
Yeah, there's so much frustration out here in the rural counties. Nevada has about 50% of the United States horse herd, despite Nevada not really being a place for large ungulates. In the past, kind of our largest native animals are mule deer, and so they don't. Cows do well on it as long as they're managed carefully as they are. And so this is just basically, kind of a reflection of that frustration that these animals need to be managed, and they need to be managed in a way that's good for the range, that's humane for the animal, and that sort of fixes the frankly dire situation we've got out there.
Yeah, you're right, dire. Even if you only cared about finances, we're looking at $1 billion annual problem managing wild horses, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and it's well over 80% of that wildlife or that management funding just goes straight to caring for the horses that are already in captivity, because they're expensive to maintain even after you get them off of the range.
And that is no life for a wild horse, and you simply cannot have 80,000 animals roaming that way on high desert lands.
It's not ideal.
No. So important discussion going forward, and that'll be on the county agenda today. And something else that's big news, I didn't mean to bury the lead, but I guess I did, and that would be the ordinance that the county commissioners are looking at. I'm not sure if this is a first reading ordinance amending Title 11, Chapter 2, adding Section 7, providing for a tax for the school district capital project fund. Now, this is loosely worded. I think just as prescribed according to statute, the county commissioners shall levy a tax at a rate of not less than a penny, but not more than 25 cents on each $100 of assessed valuation. This is specifically for capital projects for the school district. This has generated a lot of heartache, if not in public, but I know behind the scenes, Curtis, some people are, pretty invested in this one. I think it's fair to say.
Sure. Yeah. It was kind of an interesting act by the legislature, and now it's law. And so the discussion there just sort of becomes how much the commission is going to elect to levy. I know that we're still having those discussions, and I'm not exactly sure where they're at on it. And so today's the first reading, and so I think we'll find out more today.
All right. Again,
when that goes up.
Yeah, a first reading, and so that means it will come back. So if people either don't agree, whatever the levy it is, I think that's when commissioners will kind of lay their cards on the table today, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's plenty of time for both in-person and electronic comment. There'll be a second reading. So
okay, so something, and I know we'll have school officials on the program next week on next Thursday's program. That's right, on the 13th, I believe it is, Curtis. So we'll get their perspective on the issue. It's an important discussion, and all money collected would be deposited into the school district capital fund. Everybody's trying to play nicely going forward. The county commissioners could adjust the tax rate at any time, and this would be effective, if approved, after a second reading, July 1st. So I guess it goes back to July of the preceding year, I think, according to this. But
maybe I would have to, looks like it.
Looks like it. So it's pretty straightforward resolution, and it will be discussed today in public session. And I'm trying to see if there's anything I left out here. Can be changed at any time. So it's out there, and everybody will be interested to see what those cards are that they play today.
Yeah, I think that having an open and transparent process is really what they're after.
Sounds good. Curtis Moore is our assistant county manager, and I have to send you down to the meeting, but I want to make sure. Did we get to most of the topics today, the glaring ones anyway?
I think we covered it.
Okay. I sure appreciate your being available. I know commissioners, I think, were on a field trip this morning, weren't they? Or
there was part of the ORMAT education piece.
All right, so they were out in the field enjoying some sunshine before they go in for this afternoon's meeting. Thank you, Curtis, our Assistant County Manager, Natural Resources Director for Elko County, for being our guest here on Elko Live today. Have a great meeting, Curtis, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.